The initial retreat is always misinterpreted. It has to be. For her, the landscape of your relationship has been defined by a constant. The low-grade hum of conflict, the arguments, the explanations, the long, draining text threads where you fought to be understood. This noise was the soundtrack to your connection, and in a twisted way, it was her reassurance. Every time you engaged, every time you picked up the phone to plead your case or defend your intentions, you were feeding a system she had come to rely on. Your energy was the currency, and she was the sole beneficiary. So, when you finally go quiet, when the well of your attention runs dry, her first instinct isn't to look inward. It's to label your silence as surrender. She mistakes your exhaustion for defeat. In the vacuum you leave behind, her ego speaks first and loudest. It tells her she was right all along. Your love wasn't strong enough. Your commitment was conditional. You grew tired of the fight because you were never truly invested in winning her. She narrates this story to herself, painting you as the one who faltered, who couldn't handle the complexities of a real woman with real emotions. She'll feel a sharp, fleeting thrill of victory, believing she has finally secured the emotional upper hand she's been craving. This, she thinks, is power. To have been the one to walk away, or to have pushed you to the point of breaking. Feels like control finally crystallized in her hands. She tells herself she's won the game, not realizing the game was always a destructive one. And the prize for winning is a profound and echoing emptiness. But the victory lap is short-lived. The silence, once a blank space for her to project her triumph onto, begins to morph. It stops being an absence of sound and starts becoming a presence of its own. It's in this quiet that a seed of confusion begins to germinate, pushing through the cracked foundation of her certainty. Because the man who used to care, the man who used to argue, the man who once refused to let her walk away, he's gone. And his absence doesn't feel like victory. It feels like a void. It's the hollow space where your effort used to live. The irony is brutal and begins to dawn on her with a slow, chilling clarity. You weren't fighting because you were desperate or weak. You were fighting because you cared. The very intensity she dismissed as neediness was, in fact, the undeniable proof of your investment. She starts to re-examine the past through this new, unsettling lens. The late-night calls she labeled as controlling were your attempts to bridge a gap. The long messages she saw as overly emotional were your heartfelt efforts to be understood. The patience you showed in the face of her provocations wasn't a lack of backbone. It was a testament to your commitment. As twisted as it sounds, your struggle reassured her. Your persistent energy confirmed her worth. Every text, every call, every attempt to fix things was a deposit into the emotional bank account of the relationship, and she was making constant, careless withdrawals, never checking the balance. But the moment you stopped, the moment you closed the account and walked away, the ground beneath her started to crumble. She never realized that your energy, your persistence, was the only scaffolding holding the entire structure together. Now, without it, she feels the chill of that void. It's not the kind of emptiness that can be filled with a night out, a new admirer, or a flurry of social media distractions. Those are temporary flares in the dark. This is a deeper, more lingering silence. It's the kind that settles in during a quiet moment alone, in the space between one thought and the next. It's the silence that makes her reach for her phone out of habit, only to find no new notifications from you. It's the silence that forces her to sit with herself, without the comforting noise of your reaction to distract her. This is the beginning of the unwelcome shift. The narrative of her victory is starting to fray at the edges, and the first, faint threads of doubt begin to pull loose. She isn't missing you yet. Not truly. She is missing the reflection of herself that she saw in your attentive eyes. She is missing the validation that your fights provided. And in the quiet you have gifted her, she is, for the first time, starting to feel the weight of what that constant validation actually cost you, and what its absence will now cost her. The game is over, and the scoreboard has vanished, leaving her alone in the empty arena, wondering what she was really playing for. The void you leave behind is not a passive space. It becomes an active force in her life, and its discomfort soon demands a response. The initial confusion curdles into a restless energy. a need to prove that the silence is just a pause, a tactic, and not a permanent state. She cannot yet accept that your peace is genuine, so she frames it as a challenge. This is the phase of provocation, a series of calculated maneuvers designed to pierce your calm and force you back into the familiar dance of conflict. She needs to know the emotional tether still exists. If she cannot have your affection, she will gladly settle for your anger. Because anger in her lexicon is still a form of connection. It is passionate, it is intense, and most importantly, it is a reaction. It proves she can still affect you. The campaign begins subtly, almost imperceptibly to an outside observer. But to you, who knows the old patterns, the signals are as clear as flares in a night sky. It might start with a cryptic post on social media, a lyric from a song about heartbreak or betrayal, strategically placed where she knows you will see it. It's a digital fishing line cast into the waters of your silence, hoping for a bite. When that doesn't work, the provocations become more direct. A text message arrives late at night, often under the guise of something practical or nostalgic. "Hey, I found that book you lent me," or "I drove past our old spot today." The content is irrelevant. The subtext is everything. It is a probe, a test to see if the communication channel is still open, if your resolve has a crack. She's checking to see if you'll take the bait, if you'll respond with a question, a memory, or even irritation. If these initial forays yield nothing, the jabs can become more personal, tinged with a passive-aggressive edge. She might make a comment to mutual friends, a carefully worded observation about how some people change or how it's sad when someone gives up so easily, knowing it will likely find its way back to you. In conversation with you, should it occur, she might offer a backhanded compliment or a subtle dig disguised as concern. "You seem different," she might say, the implication being that you've become cold, distant, or immature. She'll frame your silence as you playing games or being emotionally unavailable, projecting her own turmoil onto your calm demeanor. The entire performance is orchestrated to elicit a response, any response. It would pull you back into the dynamic where she feels in control. Her every move, from the curated online persona of unbothered bliss to the pointed texts, silently screams, "Look at me. Acknowledge me. Fight with me." But you have outgrown the trap. You have passed through the fire of heartbreak and emerged on the other side with a profound realization. Fighting for someone who is not fighting for you is not an act of love. It is an act of self-betrayal. You see her maneuvers for what they are, a call for reconciliation, but a demand for your emotional energy. You understand that to re-engage, even in anger, is to hand her the remote control to your inner peace once more. And so, you make the conscious, disciplined choice not to play. You stop responding. You see the text, and you feel no urge to decode it. You see the social media post, and you scroll past, unaffected. You hear the comment from a friend, and you offer a neutral, non-committal response. You are not ignoring her out of petulance. You are disengaging out of wisdom. This is where your silence transforms from a mere absence of sound into something formidable. It becomes powerful. It is no longer the silence of the defeated, but the silence of the resolved. It is the sound of you reclaiming your peace, your energy, and your sovereignty. Each unreturned text is a brick in the wall of your new boundaries. Each non-reaction to a provocation is a deposit into your own emotional savings account. You are actively choosing your well-being over the draining drama of a one-sided conflict. She will cause. Try to rationalize your non-participation. Her ego, wounded by your indifference, will scramble for narratives that allow her to save face. She'll tell herself and her friends that you're acting immature, that you're incapable of handling a strong woman, that you never really loved her, if you can let go this easily. But these are words meant to convince herself, not others. Deep down, in the quiet she is trying so hard to fill with noise, she knows the truth. Your withdrawal isn't a manipulative tactic. It is an evolution. It is the natural, almost inevitable reaction of a person who has finally realized a fundamental truth. Love does not need to be begged for. You do not have to convince someone to see your worth. You do not have to argue for your rightful place in their heart. The harder she pushes, the more solid and impenetrable your calm becomes. Your unwavering silence becomes a mirror that reflects her own chaotic energy back at her, and the image is unsettling. She is forced to confront the fact that she is dancing alone, that the drama she is trying to create has no counterpart, no antagonist. You have removed yourself from the stage, and the performance cannot continue without you. In this chapter, the balance of power irrevocably shifts. It is no longer about who is right or who is wrong. It is about who is at peace and who is in turmoil. You have laid down your weapons and walked off the battlefield, and in doing so, you have won the war for your own soul. The provocation continues, but it is the frantic flailing of someone who is just beginning to understand that the game is over, and that the most powerful move you can make is to refuse to play. The provocations have failed. The texts have gone unanswered. The comments have landed on deaf ears, and the digital breadcrumbs have been left to rot in the silence. It is at this point, when the active noise of her testing subsides, that the true reckoning begins. The silence you have maintained is no longer just an absence you have created. It becomes a presence that occupies her world. It ceases to be about you and transforms into a vast, empty chamber where the only sound is the echo of her own thoughts. Your peace becomes her mirror, and for the first time, she is forced to look into it without the distraction of your reactions to blur the reflection. This is a slow, insidious process. It doesn't happen in a dramatic moment of clarity, but in the quiet, unguarded spaces of her day. It's in the stillness of a morning coffee, when there is no good morning text to ignore or respond to. It's in the empty space of an evening where there is no argument to anticipate, no emotional temperature to gauge. The scaffolding of conflict she leaned on is gone, and without it, she has to stand on her own emotional ground. And that ground feels unstable. The narrative she built that you were the problem, that your fighting was a weakness, that her victory was deserved begin to feel flimsy, like paper walls in a rising wind. The questions she had been suppressing now float to the surface, no longer drowned out by the drama. Was I too harsh? Did I push too far? Did he finally just get tired? This is when the replaying begins. Her mind, seeking answers in the past, starts scrolling through the mental archive of your relationship. But this time, the filter has changed. She doesn't just recall the arguments, she recalls your face during them. She remembers the exhaustion in your voice, not as a weapon against her, but as the sound of someone running out of emotional currency. The messages she once dismissed as pleading now read as heartfelt attempts at connection. The patience she interpreted as predictability now feels like a profound and steady strength she took for granted. The cruelest irony of all starts to cut deep. You finally did what she so often taunted you to do. You walked away. You did what you wanted. But it wasn't an act of rebellion or spite. It was the ultimate act of self-respect, and that is what makes it sting the most. The realization dawns that she has lost something far more valuable than just a boyfriend. She has lost her emotional safety net. She mistook your unwavering presence for a permanent fixture, like a tree that would always be there to provide shade, regardless of how often she chopped at its roots. She operated on the blind faith that your loyalty was eternal, a bottomless well from which she could endlessly draw validation. Now, that faith is broken and the well is dry. The control she thought she wielded the power to incite a reaction, to command your energy, to feel desired by provoking your jealousies, revealed as an illusion. True power was never in controlling another's reactions. It was in commanding your own peace, and you have now mastered it. In this new, stark light, her perception of your qualities undergoes a painful transformation. Very traits she once criticized now haunt her with their true value. Your patience, which she called boring, now reveals itself as the stability she secretly craved. Your kindness, which she took for granted as a given, now stands out in a world often marked by transactional interactions. The emotional effort she dismissed as weakness now appears as the courageous vulnerability of a man who was not afraid to care. She starts to understand, with a sinking feeling, that other men might offer the excitement of the chase or the thrill of new validation, but they will not offer the profound, grounding comfort of your consistency. They will not fight for her, because they do not have the same depth of character to draw from. This is the death of the fantasy. The narrative of finding a spark or a more passionate connection begins to feel like a hollow excuse for her own inability to handle a mature, steady love. She is left to confront the truth that her patterns, testing, the pushing, the craving for drama, not signs of a complex and passionate soul, but defenses erected by fear. Fear of true intimacy, fear of being truly seen, fear of a peace that would require her to finally quiet her own inner chaos. She is left alone in the silence you have gifted her. That silence is forcing her to listen to the one person she has been running from, herself. The power she thought she had over you has evaporated, and in its place is the unsettling, undeniable power of your absence. You are no longer there to be her emotional punching bag or her source of validation. You have become a lesson, and the homework is the most difficult of her life, to sit in the quiet and finally face the reflection staring back at her from the void. There is a threshold in the process of letting go that is far more definitive than anger, more final than sadness. It is a state of being that she is entirely unprepared for, a psychological landscape where the old rules of engagement no longer apply. This is the stage of indifference, and for a person whose emotional equilibrium is built on the ability to elicit a reaction, it is the most terrifying terrain imaginable. Your silence has now matured beyond a strategic withdrawal. It has become a fundamental part of your new constitution. You are not holding a grudge. You are not nursing a wounded heart. You have simply and completely let go of the emotional tether that once bound you to her. This is not the cold, sharp indifference of hatred, which is still a form of intense focus. This is the warm, ambient indifference of peace, which is a form of profound release. You don't wish her harm? You are largely indifferent to her well-being, not out of malice, but because she has become a stranger whose path no longer intersects with your own. This is the stage she cannot process. Her entire emotional framework is built on the spectrum of connection. With love and anger being two intense but familiar poles, she knows how to navigate a man's rage. She can use it, deflect it, or weaponize it. She understands heartbreak. It is a drama in which she can play the lead role, either as the victim or the remorseful heroine. But indifference? Indifference is a void that offers no handholds. It means you have truly accepted a life that does not include her. It means the war is not on pause. It is over, and you have left the battlefield so far behind you, can no longer even hear its echoes. Your healing is complete. That completion is the one outcome for which she has no countermove. While she has been haunted by the silence, you have been undergoing a quiet metamorphosis. The energy you once poured into the bottomless vessel of her validation has been redirected inward. The space she created with her indifference became the fertile ground where you rebuilt yourself. You have learned to sit with the pain, not as a victim, but as an alchemist, turning leaden heartbreak into golden wisdom. You've stopped seeking love externally and started cultivating it within, realizing that your strength doesn't come from being chosen by another, but from the unwavering choice you make for yourself every single day. You filled the void she left, not with another person, but with purpose, with discipline, with a newfound appreciation for your own company. You have become emotionally self-sufficient. This transformation makes you unrecognizable to her, and therefore untouchable. You are not the man she remembers. That man was defined by his reaction to her. This new man is defined by his response to his own inner compass. You are centered. You are grounded. You have become selective with your energy, not as a tactic but as a principle. When she tries to reconnect us, she inevitably will. The shift is palpable. It might be a nostalgic "hey, stranger" text, a like on an old photo, or a comment from a mutual friend about how she misses talking. You may even respond, politely and without tension, but the emotional warmth, the charge that once crackled between you, is gone. The dynamic has reversed completely. You are no longer the one seeking reassurance. You have become the unshakable mountain, and she is now the one casting small stones, hoping for an echo that will never come. the harder she tries to provoke a flicker of the old you. The more she realizes the depth of her miscalculation. She thought your silence was a tactic within the game. She now understands that you have left the casino altogether and have no interest in the outcome of the roll. This realization is what breaks her completely. Women who thrive on emotional engagement can manipulate feelings. They can stoke anger, invoke guilt, or inspire passion. But they cannot manipulate a silence that is rooted in genuine self-respect and inner peace. That kind of calm is impervious to their tools. Your indifference becomes the final unanswerable argument. It forces her to confront the truth without the comforting buffer of your emotional participation. There is no one to blame, no one to fight, no one to win back. There is only the stark reality of a consequence she never believed would materialize, the permanent loss of a good man. She is left alone with the hollow sound of her own regret, a sound that is infinitely louder than any argument you ever had. You have not just ended the relationship. You have transcended it. And in doing so, you have presented her with the one lesson she cannot avoid and cannot reframe, that the opposite of love is not hate. It is indifference. And you have found a profound and unshakable peace within it. The story does not end with a dramatic reunion or a final satisfying confrontation. It ends not with a bang, but with a sustained, resonant peace. This is the final chapter, the stage of unbreakable peace, where the lessons of the heart have been fully integrated into the fabric of your being. You have built a life that no longer orbits the memory of her or the pain she caused. The energy that was once consumed by decoding her texts, managing her emotions, and fighting for a place in her heart has been wholly reclaimed and reinvested in yourself. You wake up with clarity, not confusion. Your focus is sharp, directed toward your purpose, your passions, and the people who reciprocate your energy. You understand now that her departure was not a tragedy. It was the necessary demolition that cleared the space for you to build a stronger, more authentic foundation. You look back at the man you were, the one who pleaded, who explained, who fought for scraps of attention not with shame, but with a sense of compassionate detachment. That version of you was the raw material, a necessary apprentice who had to go through the fire to be forged into the man you are now. You feel a sense of gratitude for that heartbreak, for that silence, for that profound loss. Without it, you would have never been forced to learn how to build alone. You would have never discovered the immense strength that was sleeping within you, waiting for a reason to awaken. Sometimes the universe breaks your heart not to punish you, but to remind you where your true power resides. This hard-won peace becomes your new addiction. You no longer crave the emotional highs and lows of dramatic love. You crave equilibrium. You seek partners who offer stability, not chaos, whose presence feels like a calm harbor, not a turbulent storm. You've stopped confusing intense attachment for genuine connection. You now understand that love isn't supposed to be a constant battle for validation. It is meant to be a quiet, steady partnership where two whole people choose each other from a place of abundance, not lack. You don't need to be completed. You are seeking to be complemented. This inner shift radiates outward, altering the very energy you carry into the world. You are not bitter or guarded. You are composed and grounded. You don't speak for approval. You speak for clarity. You no longer react impulsively. You respond thoughtfully. This subtle difference, the shift from reaction to response, is what separates you from every person still trapped in emotional chaos. Women sense this difference immediately. You are no longer the hungry seeker of validation. You have become the source of it. You are a man who doesn't chase. You attract. And what you attract now is peace, because that is the frequency on which you have chosen to live. She, meanwhile, remains a prisoner of the past, though she would never admit it publicly. She will move on, date new people, and perhaps even build a life that looks happy from the outside. But the ghost of your memory will linger in the quiet corners of her world. Every new man she meets will be subconsciously measured against the standard you set. He might be more exciting, more charming, or more immediately attentive. But he will lack the foundational quality you offered, profound masculine calm. He will not have the patience to sit in her silence without needing to fill it. He will not have the strength to hold her storms without being swept away. He will not provide the emotional safety net that allowed her to be her most chaotic self, yet still feel secure. She will realize too late that what she thought was boring was actually safe. What she called predictable was the consistency she now craves. You hold no resentment toward her. True detachment is not about pretending she never existed. It's about caring from a place of non-attachment. You see her memory with a sense of compassion. She was not evil. She was unhealed. You were ready for depth, and she was still addicted to the surface. You wanted a partnership, and she wanted an audience. You were building a future, and she was living in the momentary thrill of validation. And that is okay. Every person who crosses our path is either a blessing or a lesson, and she was both. She was the lesson that taught you your worth is non-negotiable, and the blessing that freed you from everything that was not meant for your peace. The ultimate ending, therefore, is not revenge or her regret. It is your liberation. You've learned the truth that many never grasp, that walking away in silence does not mean you lost the fight. It means you transcended it. You stopped fighting for her and started fighting for yourself. You stopped chasing love and started embodying it. You became the man she always wanted but could never keep, not because she wasn't enough, but because she wasn't ready. You now carry that peace like an armor-come, unshakable and untouchable. She may think of you often, may even dream of what could have been, but you will sleep peacefully, knowing that you didn't lose her. She lost you, and that lost brother will echo in the chambers of her heart far longer, far more profoundly than your silence ever could. Your peace is the final unanswerable word,